Hello everyone, this is Shlok, and in this video, we are going to be going through how to brush up on our current affairs and static GK. And especially since NMIMS is going to be the first one for a lot of us, it is going to help us with that as well. And in addition to that, I'm also going to be covering the broad topics in static GK as well as current affairs, which will help us perform very well at our interviews. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, we all know that we should be aware about what is happening around the world, regardless of whether we have to face the interviews or not. But let's be honest, a lot of us are only gonna, gonna start once we know that an interview is coming. So, with that said, I want to focus on what I have been doing ever since the CAT and the ZAT are over. And that is something that you can follow as well, and this barely takes me about not more than 1 hour every day. So with that said, let's get started with what I do every day. The first thing that I do is newspapers. I think super important. And how do I go about reading newspapers? I do not read the whole newspaper. I just go through the headlines, which are news, which is not very important. Just go through that particular part through the headlines. But the part that is important, how do you know that a part is important? You have to see whether it is recurring or not. So 2 3 5 days, if a news keeps on coming, it becomes a very important piece of information that you should know very well. So that information could also, be asked as an opinion. For example, the freebies situation in Delhi, then Delhi elections is one topic, then the Trump win becomes another issue that is of international importance right now, and what are the kind of actions that he has been taking ever since he has taken office. So that is one important part, and in addition to that, what kind of impact that would have on India is also very important. So that is one aspect of it. The next very important thing, which newspaper do I read? And I keep it simple, to be very honest. I go for Times of India. I know a lot of my mentors have been telling me ki, Hindu padna chahiye, or you should go for The Economist or something like that. But I know that I won't be able to sustain myself doing that hi-fi complicated kind of reading. So be realistic and get something that you will read, even after the day gets done. Let's say you did not get time in the morning. I cover up on my news only at the end of the day, because I don't get myself to read the newspaper in the morning. So get something that you will do, and don't try to be idealistic, try to be realistic. So that is the first thing about my newspaper choice. I be sure to read the editorial, because the editorial is something, mostly the editor gives his opinion about something that is really significant happening in the country right now. So the editorial tells you a couple of things. The first is, what is the important thing that is happening in the country right now that you need to have an opinion on, and what is the editor's own opinion on that particular topic. So this helps you in a GD situation. It also helps you in a VAT situation, which is the returnability test, and it also helps you out as if the interviewer asks you ki, okay, these are all the facts, I know you know the facts, but what do you think about this? So editorials really help you form an opinion as well. So that's why be sure to definitely read the editorial especially. So now let's say you've been reading the newspaper for a couple of days, maybe a full week you've been reading the newspaper, and now you sort of have an understanding of what has been happening around the world. And now what I want you to do is write down the important topics. What are the important topics right now? For example, let's say the Kolkata sexual assault case is something that is in the news. Then, as I said, the Trump win, then the space docking that ISRO has achieved. Then recently something that happened was PAN 2.0 and something along those lines. So there are a lot of things happening. These are some of the things that I could recall at the back of my head. But the more important part that I'm trying to get to is, once you have these points noted down, I need you to chat GPT them. And what I generally do is I just ask ChatGPT that tell me everything I need to know about these topics. So you are not only covering current affairs, but also you're sort of covering the history of those current affairs. For example, if there is a new development in the Israel and Gaza war, then what I would do is try to understand the origins of the war. Of course, current affairs would tell me what is happening right now, but I also need to have some historical context in order to understand this better. So that was one is important aspect as to how you can leverage ChatGPT in order to improve your current affairs knowledge. And basically it is asking ChatGPT, tell me all I need to know about XYZ. So that is one part that gets over. Let's look at the next part. And now I know a lot of you don't like reading, and even I don't like reading, to be very honest. So let's look at something that I have been generously following for the last maybe a year and a half, which is a much more sustainable way for me to keep tabs on the current affairs. and that is going to be YouTube. And I'm only going to recommend you one channel for that, which is First Post. And this in this, Palki Sharma is, she is a journalist. She tells us about everything that is happening around the world, and it is mainly a channel about geopolitics. So she has covered in depth what is happening after Trump won the elections. Then she has covered the kind of deepening ties between Iran and Russia. Then she keeps on talking about China as well, and how India is tackling its geopolitical affairs. So that is something that really intrigues me, and she covers it very well also. She gives you historical context into whatever is happening around the current affairs, as I have already mentioned. So if you watch her videos, you also sort of get a you understand not just what is happening right now, but what all has happened that has led to this particular moment. So that is the YouTube recommendation that I would like to give. So we all read a lot of things a lot of times, but rarely a few of us are able to recall the right things at the right time. And for that, I have a certain process that I follow. And one of the most important things that I do is taking notes. So what kind of notes am I talking about? I take notes about whatever the big thing that has happened right now. For example, let's say the US elections happened. So what all is important about the US elections? That there are two parties, there are Democrats, there are Republicans, then like we have in India the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. Over there we have the Senate and the House of Representatives. So that is something. So these are the kind of basics that you should know about anything that has happened lately. The next very important aspect is the Uniform Civil Code. So basically in this section, I'm going to be outlining a lot of important topics that you should definitely be aware of. So let's come to the second one, which is the Uniform Civil Code. So what is the Uniform Civil Code about? It is basically making sure that the civil laws are same for all the religions, regardless of for all the people, regardless of the religion they follow. And this is going to have a host of benefits for the country. For example, there it would reduce discrimination in the country. It would improve unity in the country, and most importantly, it would improve women's safety, because things such as triple talaq and a host of other things would be scrapped. And it will also ensure equal ownership rights for women as well. So that is going to be a big factor for women empowerment. But one of the important things about the Uniform Civil Code was that the government said that live-in relationships would have to be reported to the government. The government would need to know about these kinds of relationships. So that is kind of an invasion of privacy, which could be said is one of the disadvantages of this particular law. So every law that you are covering, make sure that you look at all aspects of that particular law. So that's a little bit about the Uniform Civil Code. And one more thing, I think so that Uttarakhand is going to be the first state, or one of the first states, that is going to implement this particular policy. So that is also one very important key piece of information about this law. The next very important aspect that we should look at is the budget 2024. Sorry, 2025. We are in a new year now. So the budget 2025 is going to be very, very important for us to follow, and especially because our interviews are going to start from the month of Feb, and the budget is going to have, it releases on the 1st of Feb every year. So that is something that we need to have our eyes on, and I'll also be making a detailed video looking at the budget 2025 from an MBA interviews point of view. So please stay tuned for that. And so follow the budget 2025 and make detailed notes about this particular topic. The next very important thing is finance. A lot of us are doing our MBAs in order to improve our finances, and we need to know what is happening in the financial situation of the country. And that is also where a lot of current affairs comes from. And this is especially more important if you are someone from a commerce background. You need to know the following things that I'm going to write down. The first very important thing is the inflation. What is the current inflation rate? And what is the target inflation rate that RBI aims for? Who decides the inflation rate? What is the difference between monetary versus fiscal policy? Super important. You need to know about that. Inflation rate I've already talked about. Understand how inflation is calculated. It is calculated. Is it calculated through consumer price index or wholesale price index? Very, very important. The next thing is you need to know the GDP growth. By what percentage the GDP has been growing, and by what percentage it is expected to grow in the next fiscal year. And how is GDP calculated? There are a bunch of methods. There is a value added method, expenditure method, income method. You need to brush up all of that as well. So that was a little bit about the finance aspect of current affairs. So that was a little bit about the current affairs. I'm by no means covering all the important topics, but you get a gist of the kind of major topics that I'm looking at, and you can now yourself try and identify such topics and prepare on the same. So with that out of the way, now I'll try to cover some topics from static GK that I think are very, very important. And one of the most important things are, I'm sure most of you are aware about this, but just in case you're not, please brush up on what is the difference between MPs and MLAs, which are member of parliament versus the members of legislative assemblies. So please look through that. Then, how is the president elected? That is a very important aspect. Then, one more thing, I have seen a lot of my peers brushing up all the union ministers and their names. I don't think that is very, very important. Just go through the main ones: Home Minister, Defense Minister, Road Minister, and Road and Transport Minister, Railway Minister, Education, HRD Minister, and so on. Foreign Minister. So those are some of the important ones. And even if you don't know a few of them, it's fine. You don't need to go in depth, but you need to know about important static GK stuff. For example, one of the recent questions that I was asked was, if you travel from Gujarat, which is somewhere over here, to West Bengal, which is somewhere over here, this is the Indian map. If you weren't able to gather, this is the rough diagram of an Indian map, the southern portion of it. And how many languages would you encounter if you are going from Gujarat all the way up to West Bengal via the sea route? So how many languages would you encounter? So you need to know that after Gujarat, you would probably encounter, first of all, you would get Maharashtra over here, then you would see Goa over here, you would see Karnataka, you would see Kerala, you would see Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, you would see you wouldn't see Telangana, but you would see Odisha, and then finally you would get to West Bengal. So you need to not only know sort of the rough diagram of the Indian map in your head, but you also need to know the kind of languages that are spoken in each of these states and what are the capital, and even knowing the capital would not hurt. It is a great add-on. So make sure you do that. And more importantly, do not forget the seven sister states, which are, you need to brush up on that as well. If the interviewers could very well ask you that, especially if you are a fresher and there are not too many things to talk about in your work ex aspect. So freshers should especially brush up a lot more on current affairs and static GK. Next part that I've been asked a lot in interviews is, yeah, the three highest civilian honors is very important: the Bharat Ratna, the Padma Vibhushan, the Padma Bhushan, and their recent awardees as well. Super important aspect. So make sure you read up on that. Nobel Prize awardees is another very important aspect. Nobel Prize winners in literature, in peace, in economics, physics, and chemistry. All those subjects, very, very important aspect. The next important aspect I want to cover is the India Stack. What is India Stack? It is basically digital infrastructure that has strengthened the Indian economy over the last couple of years, and this involves initiatives such as UPI, Aadhaar, eKYC, and so on. So this is very important, and especially because India is the first one who has been able to apply this or incorporate this into their economies on such a massive scale. Because if you look at when last year Emmanuel Macron came to the country, PM Modi showed him how UPI works, and he was fascinated by that. So that goes to show that this is a uniquely Indian invention, and India has been the most successful in applying this infrastructure in the country. So that is one very important aspect. So mainly, I think that's about it from my side. What I think some of the important topics are, of course, a lot of things that I could not think from the back of my head. There are a lot of other things. But even if you know these things and if you bring these up in a conversation in a GD or a VAT or a PI, they make you look like a knowledgeable candidate. They make you look like someone who knows what is going around in the world. And it makes yourself also much more confident when you are sitting in an interview room and when you are waiting in the sitting area while your interview turn is coming. So be sure to brush up on all these important factors. And I hope you have a great interview season ahead. I hope you are enjoying my videos, and I hope you got to learn something new. Uh, I always appreciate new suggestions, new content ideas, and most importantly, write in the comment section what you think are some of the important topics that I missed out on, so that this could add a lot of value to other people's interview prep as well, so they get a lot more new topics that they can brush up on. And even myself, I also have my interviews coming up, and I can also brush up on these topics. So that's that's a little bit from my side. Thank you so much for watching, and bye bye.